Good morning, students. Today we are going to learn Standard 7th English. We will continue learning with our poem. Poem number 3.4, The Brook. Students, this poem titled The Brook is in the form of story where the brook itself is narrating its story and telling us about all the places where it has visited, and also it is comparing its journey to the journey of a man's life. In the first part of the poem, we have studied that the brook begins its journey from a haunting place, and then it passes through 30 hills, flows down a valley, slips in between the ridges, and also throughout its journey, it passes through 20 small villages, a little town, and around half a hundred bridges. After completing all this journey, in the end, it flows through the Phillips farm where it reaches its destination, that is, it joins the brimming river. In throughout this journey, till reaching its destination, that is the brimming river, whatever other experiences the brook has is all explained in this poem. While flowing through the river, many of the different types of birds as well as unique plants meet the brook in its journey. Now, let us continue with today's studies to find out about the other experiences of the brook while flowing through the brimming river. Let us begin our studies by reading the 7th stanza. I went about and in and out, with here a blossom sailing, and here and there a lusty trout, and here and there a grayling. So students, in this stanza, the brook is telling us that it is winding about. Students, winding about means flowing here and there in a zigzag manner. So, while flowing through the river, the brook does not flow in a straight line. Rather, it winds around in and out, that is, it flows in any direction or in a zigzag path without flowing in a straight line. Further, the brook tells us that when it is flowing in the zigzag manner, it also carries a blossom which is sailing on its water. Students, blossom is a beautiful flower. So here the brook tells us that in its flowing water, it also carries a beautiful flower of blossom along with it. The blossom must be growing somewhere near the brook, and with wind it would have fallen in the brook water, and thus it also started flowing or sailing along with the brook. Also, the brook tells us that apart from the blossom, there are many other things which are flowing in its water. The brook tells us that there is a trout who flows or moves here and there in its water. Students, trout is a name of a big fish. Apart from trout, there is another fish named grayling which is also flowing here and there in this water of the brook. So students, while flowing or while sailing, the brook also carries with it fishes such as trout and grayling. These both are the freshwater fishes which are found usually in brooks, rivers, or lakes. So, in this stanza, the brook has told us that it flows in a zigzag portion, and while flowing, it carries along with it the blossoms, fishes such as trout and grayling. Now, let us study the next stanza. And here and there a foamy flake upon me as I travel, with many a silvery water break above the golden gravel. So students, in this stanza the brook is telling us that when it is traveling here and there, a foamy flake is appeared on it. So students, when the brook flows, its wave clashes among itself, and this leads to the formation of big and small bubbles. When these bubbles come together to make a group, it is known as a foam. Students, as you can see it in the above picture, the water of the brook is completely covered with foam. It is known as a foamy flake which is upon the brook when it travels here and there. Also, the brook tells us that when the sunlight reaches these foams, the foam begin to shine, and thus it makes a silver color. So, all these foamy bubbles make up a shining silvery color on the water of the brook. Also, on the the brook tells that the silver foam is flowing above the golden colored gravel. Students, gravel means the land which is below the brook water. In other words, we can call it as sand, and also there are some other big and small stones on this sand. The color of the sand here is being referred as golden color, and thus the brook tells us that it has a silvery water break which is flowing above the golden colored gravel sand. Thus, in this stanza, the brook has given us a description about its foam and the sand on which it flows. The foam is silver in color, while the gravel or the sand is golden in color. Now, students, let us learn the next stanza. And draw them all along and flow to join the brimming river. For men may come and men may go, but I go on forever. So students, in this stanza, the brook is telling us that the brook draws or takes all of these things and flows along with it. But tell me students, here the word them refers to which all things? Yes, you all have guessed it correct. Here the word them refers to the blossoms, the trout, the grayling, the foams, as well as the golden gravels through which the brook is flowing. Thus, while flowing, the brook draws or carry all of these things along with it, and it joins the brimming or the flowing river. And in the end of this stanza, the brook tells us that when it flows through all these things with many things, many men comes and goes, but It is the brook that goes on continuously without stopping. Students, in these two lines, the brook is comparing itself with the men, where it states that it is the nature of the men to come in the world and to go away from the world after death. But as the brook is a non living thing, it does not end its life and it flows on forever continuously. In the next stanza, the brook tells us that I slip, I slide, I gloom, I glance. Among my scheming shallows, I make a netted sunbeam dance against my sandy shallows. So, students, in this stanza, the brook has given us the description about all the activities it does while flowing. It tells us that when it flows, it slips and slides. These are some of the activities that usually human beings do. Also, the brook tells us that when it is the gloom time, it glances and during it, it slips and slides. Students, glances means to hurry or rush quickly, and gloom means a partial or little darkness. So, when it's the evening time and the light or the brightness is slowly decreasing, the brook increases its speeds and begins to glance, that is, to hurry. During this period of gloom, in order to glance or to hurry, the brook sometimes slips and slides. Further, in the evening time, the brook finds that there are some swallow birds which are skimming on its surface to find food for them. Students, swallows are a name of the European birds which mostly eat fishes as their food. Students, skimming means touching the surface. Here, the surface is the water of the brook. Thus, in this water, as the brook carries along it many fishes such as the trout and the grayling, the birds and the swallows comes on the brook to have their food of these birds. While moving at a glance, the waves of the brook makes a netted like structure on which the sunlight or the sunshine sparkles, and it seems to us that the sunbeams are sparkling or dancing. It means that when the waves moves along with it, the sparkling and the shining sunlight also moves, and it seems that the waves and the sunlight are dancing together on the sandy shallows or the holes which are created on the sand due to the water of the brook flowing above it. Students, now let us see what does the brook tells us in the next stanza. I murmur around moon and stars in brambling wilderness. I linger by my shiny bars. I loiter around my cresses. So, students, in this stanza, the description is given about the activities of the broom during the night time. The brook tells us that when it is night time in the sky, there are many stars and a shining moon. Under the moon and the stars, the brook murmurs while flowing. Murmuring or murmurs means speaking slowly or very silently. So, in the night time, when the brook flows, it makes some noise while flowing, which is referred as the murmuring of the brook. Also, the brook tells us that during the night time, it flows in the Brambly Wilderness area. Students, Brambly Wilderness means the area which is completely covered with many trees. It is usually a forest. So, during the night time, the brook flows through the forest where there are many plants and trees. Also, the brook tells us that it purposely lingers on its way because there are many shingly bars. Linger means to move slowly or with a delay. Students, shingly means these small rounded stones or the pebbles which are usually found on the sands or in moving water. And bar means the obstacles or the barrier. So, due to the stones, the brook face a difficulty or a obstacle in moving faster and thus it purposely moves slowly in this forest area at night time. Also, while flowing there, the brook loiter around many crevices. Crevices are the small plants or the plants which are usually grown nearby any water area. This crevices also creates an obstacle in the flowing of the brook and hence the brook loiter or take a short break while moving further. Students, now let us see what does the brook tells us about itself in this last stanza. And out again I curve and flow to join the brimming river, for men may come and men may go, but I go on forever. The students, in the end, the brook tells us that after facing so many difficulties or the obstacles, the brook again curves itself or takes a turn, changes the path, and again begins on its journey and begins to flow because it wants to reach its destination, that is, to join the brimming river. Again, in the last two lines, the brook has told us that it is the nature of the men to come and go from this world, but the brook continuously flows and it goes on forever without ending. So, students, here we come to the end of the poem. I hope you all have enjoyed learning the poem and understood it. Thank you.